Welcome back to the Gunners Club. Now, I was on holiday just outside of Geelong when I heard the news about the assassination attempt on Trump. I gave you a call, Seuss, and you frankly were in shock.
I was. I didn't know anything about it until you called and let me know.
And so what we decided to do was to convene an emergency war room meeting. You're welcome to join us here at Seussology. Now, democracy is something which we do not hold dear enough. Think about it, started off in ancient Greece, basically in the city-state of Athens. Democracy, ethimi is the people, and kratos is power, or if you think of it now today in Greek, it's the state. So it was the power of the people. What you may not realise is that democracy in Athens lasted for less than 200 years. This is a very fragile thing, democracy. Essentially what happened in Athens is that you would take men over the age of 20, take 500 of them, they would have power for the period of 1 year. Every time legislation was drawn, it would go before the people. Now to vote, you had to be male, you had to be over 20, you had to own land. So it wasn't what we would think of today as a true democracy, but it was a start. And then people would actually raise their hands in the markets in the agora, and that's how power was transferred. Now, I see what's happened today, this attempt on Trump's life, as a very, very real attempt to wrest power away from the people. It's effectively one person saying that he's more important than every other person there in that state.
Well, yeah, I mean, this isn't the first time that has had that something like this has happened, obviously.
That's right. I mean, if we look to America alone, there have actually been 4 presidents assassinated, and there have been attempts on a further 3. Now, if we look at, and I'm saying how fragile your democracy is, if we have a look even in the West, political West, in January, the stabbing in the neck of the South Korean Democratic leader, or we look even in May at the assassination attempt at Slovakia's Prime Minister. This is a real enduring and ongoing threat. Now, we look to the United States, and we sort of go very biblical here to Matthew chapter 5, as America being like that city on the hill. Now, Australia took that concept of the city on the hill. You know, Jesus was talking about it's impossible to hide a city that is on the hill, and then he talks about if you've got a light, you wouldn't put it under cover. Well, we think of the liberty and we think of the freedom and what's espoused from America as being like that city on the hill. It came to Australian politics through Prime Minister Ben Chifley, when he was talking about the Labor Party as doing the work of the city on the hill. So we look very much to America as an example of that. Now, what were your thoughts when you found out what happened this morning?
Well, I didn't know what the outcome was until I started looking at the news, the newsreels and the news clips. And as soon as I heard that he was only minorly injured, if you want to call it that, with the blood on his face.
Yes.
To me, it suddenly occurred that if this was an assassination attempt, let's say, somewhere from the left, then it was extremely counterproductive, because the sympathy vote for Trump now is going to be astronomical, in my opinion.
I think you're right. So this occurred in the state of Pennsylvania, a state in which Trump was already ahead of by 3 points. So I don't understand how well calculated this was. Obviously, the attempt was to kill him. It actually grazed his ear.
Yes.
That's as close can be. Now, when this happened, something similar happened to Reagan. He believed that he was spared by God for a purpose, and he was further emboldened, and on he went. And in fact, he enjoyed very good polls at the time, Reagan.
Yes, he did.
And his polls actually increased. They went up and up. But you'll see that Reagan's party were very keen to get him in front of the cameras as soon as possible afterwards.
Yep.
And in fact, I understand that's what's happening with Trump as well. There's already been a promise that he's going to continue to attend the party's affairs.
Yep.
And to do that too. The only thing
this this, as it happens, was the last rally within that campaign series.
I mean, it's incredible. We're talking only 4 months before the election, so this is really very current with what's going on. I agree with what you're saying. I think that there's going to be a tremendous upsurge in the undercurrent of support for Trump. Now, the reason that's important is this. A lot of people who vote in the United States, they're not regular voters. So they will vote for one election, but they won't vote for others. Now, The turnout for 2020 was as close to as high as it's ever been. You'd have to go back to the 1800s for a turnout as high as that. So people are turning up, but they're just not turning up all the time. So it's the intermittent voters are the ones which are key to power on Capitol Hill. Now, who do you think is going to be more emboldened to come out now and vote? Will it be the Democrats or will it be the Republicans? Now, we just saw the video together of Trump getting up and basically pumping his fist in the air, and we understood that his words, repeated 3 times, were
fight, fight, fight.
Fight, fight, fight. Now, if that's not a rallying call, I really don't know what is.
Very true. And I think at this stage, he is, I believe, going to be unstoppable now as a result of this.
For me, this really strikes at the heart of what democracy is. Like I've said, it's not an ongoing thing. Democracy in Athens fell after they fell to Sparta. And democracy in the West is not a long-lived or necessarily a continuous thing either. Look at the recent attempts of assassination and murder so far. It's really quite in peril. I think Trump might be seen almost as being slightly messianic. The fact that he was injured, the fact that he had blood on his ear and blood on his face that was very visible, that could be symbolically like someone having a blood pact with the American people.
Oh, very much so. It's very symbolic.
It is. And this is a man who is independently wealthy. And don't forget, in his previous term, gave every cent of his salary to charity. He's not doing it because he financially needs to be there.
No, that's right. He can see that there is a big problem with America, and he is attempting to fix, in his own way, he's attempting to address these problems.
Now, please don't think that Sociology is telling you how to vote. The purpose of this video is really to give an Australian perspective on the absolute horror and shock, I was trying to put those 2 words together, of how we feel. And in fact, our Prime Minister Albanese has come out and said just how confronting it is, this political violence, and also the fact that there is no place for this violence in democracy. So if we have a look at what the vote is, I mean, from the Latin, it's basically giving your vow. This is the vow of the people. This is the power of the people. And essentially what's happening here is one person is attempting to coerce the American people and effectively the West into their way of thinking. There must be room for peaceful assembly and for political discourse and Congress in the West.
You don't have to agree with the other side, but you have to accept the decision of the majority.
That's right.
Otherwise, the civilization just breaks down into clans, into various factions, and eventually there will be no America. And I'm not just talking about America.
The greatest fear, really, for America is that there's underlying fractures already.
Oh, of course there is.
And something like this could be a trigger or could be a basis for a civil war. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the case because a lot of things have to happen, including a lot of organisation for something like a civil war to happen. But it's certainly not what democracy should be, which is the safe, reliable, transparent handing of power from the people to the next group that they choose as their representatives. America, Australians who support democracy are behind you. And we wish for healing for your political system, and we wish for the people to have their vote.
And to the good health of Trump.
If you like what we do, and we're not telling you how to think, like, subscribe, join us. We've got plenty of adventures, and we'll see you soon.